something different and custom, and it all depends on what the client wants, the space the cabinet's going in, and the cost. And for the job that I'm working on right now, cost plays a big factor in the building of this cabinet. I normally finish cabinets, or I have someone who finish them for me, but this one, the person that is getting this cabinet today is finishing it on their own. So one of the ways that they're saving cost is the fact of the material that I'm making it out of. The box that's going to be going on this frame right here, that I've showed in a previous video of how I made the face frame. The box that I'm going to be making for this is just going to be made out of ACX that I just happened to get at Home Depot. It's, what was it, $25, $30 a sheet, which is a lot cheaper than pretty much anything I can get from my supplier. Normally I make my drawer boxes out of a pre-finished maple, and since this is all drawers, the drawers are going to be big enough where they're going to hide the inside of the cabinet itself. So going with this ACX plywood, for the cost and what it does, it will be sufficient. I normally don't build out of ACX because it's just not a good surface, a smooth surface for interior cabinets. But this is a good friend of mine, and we're trying to do what we can to save him some money. So with that being said, let's move ahead, and I'm going to show you how I make my boxes, or this box for this particular unique drawer bank underneath the staircase. I have changed the saw blade on my table saw, which cuts better for plywood, cross grain and width grain. It has a clean cut on both sides. Once I've put this in, now what I'm going to do is cut my pieces for the plywood. Normally I cut the long strips first, and then I'll cross cut everything to the specific size. I need to make some angle cuts, so I need to turn this at an angle. I have a marker, or there's a gauge on the table saw itself for the degrees, but I don't really trust that. I bought one of these Wixie angle gauges a few years ago, and I find that it helps really well on being really accurate with my angles. So I have my dado here, and I had to put spacers in to get the right thickness of this particular CDS plywood, which is 5/8 but really measures somewhere around 9/16. So I had to make sure that it fit right. I've got my dado here, and if you look, you can see that this will fit right in there like that. What that does is this measures everything out for me, so I don't have to do any measuring. This will let me put the plywood in where I need it to go, and it's all set up. And it's put together like a puzzle, so that way if it gets knocked around at all, it's not going to fall apart. This is one of the reasons why I like to make my face frame before I do my boxes. I'm going to take an end here, and I'm going to make it flush. As you can see here, I can push the face frame down a little and it'll grab. So once it grabs, there it is right there. So once that has grabbed that edge, so this is flush to the edge there, I go to the opposite side and I make a mark. Once I make the mark, I'm going to pull this away, and as you can see, I have a line here. From this edge to this line is 1/4 of an inch. This represents the 1/8 of an inch that goes into the dado on either side. So this plywood is going to go into the side of the box 1/8 of an inch, and the other side is going to go in 1/8 of an inch. Now that I have that, I could go either side, it doesn't matter. I just do that to check to make sure my box is the right size. Then what I do is I hook an end here. As you can see, I'm hooking this end now. It doesn't matter either end, but I'm doing this end. And I make a mark. Once I make a mark, I pull this away and I go 1/8 of an inch that way, since this face frame was lipped on this edge and needs to go that way, 1/8 of an inch. So with that being said, the mark on the right will be flush to the inside edge of this. I like to do that because when I put the hardware in, I want as easy as possible. So my hardware is going to be flush to this face frame edge and flush to this face frame edge. And it's also, the box on this side is going to be flush to this face frame. The only side that isn't going to be flush is this, because this is 1 inch and this plywood is 9/16. So I'll have to fill on the back of this just a little bit here, or 7/16 in order to get this side flush for the hardware. Since I'm having 2 drawers here, it's better to flush this side and this side, so that way these both adjust, and all I have to do is put in 1 filler piece on this side. I did my dado, as you can see here, and I could line this up with it and make a mark on this side and pull it away. And you'll notice, well, this is about 1/8 of an inch and this is a little bit more than 1/8 of an inch, which is fine, because when I did the dado, I always shifted over a 32nd to maybe a 16th, but usually about a 32nd over, so that way it never comes out protruding past this surface. So if anything, there'll be a slight lip on either side of here, but nothing really significant. Fit of the face frame on the box. As you can see, the box is total width, the back and the front is 40 inches tall, or deep I should say. So what I do is I fit this flush, this bottom edge is flush, and then what I do is I line this up flush. There's a little tiny lip there, and there's a little tiny lip there, and then I gotta fill this end in for the hardware. So all in all, the whole thing fits, which is good. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna glue and pin nail the face frame onto the box. So I have a pin gun. I'm using 1¼ inch 18 gauge pins to pin this in. I try to sparingly pin it. I don't shoot a whole bunch, just enough to hold it. I'm gonna glue it pretty well. And before I do that, I break all the edges of the box as well as the face frame, which I've already done. So now I'm just gonna glue it, put the frame on, and pin it together. I'm going to putty those. Doesn't matter what kind of putty, because this is all going to get painted. And so I'm going to putty it, let the putty dry, and sand it. I'm going to use an orbital, and what that does is that smooths this down from the drum sander. The drum sander, even though it smooths the surface, there's still little ridges and things from where there's indiscrepancies in the sandpaper on the drum sander. So the orbital will take all that down and make it nice and smooth, but it has these little tiny swirl marks. If this was going to get stained, then I'd definitely need to go to a pad sander to get all the swirls out. This is paint grade, so I don't need to, but I usually always do. And so with the orbital, this is 120, and then I usually pad sand depending to 150 or 180. I probably got 150 on here, so I'm just gonna pad sand this to 150. Then once I'm done, I just break all these edges so they're not sharp, and then she is ready to be painted. So here's my final product. Got the box built, face frame put on, sanded, edges broken, kicks put on. Now all I need to do is make the drawer boxes for it. As you can see, the drawer box is going to be kind of custom here. They're going to be made out of pre-finished maple, and they're going to have Accuride 350-pound rated hardware for them because the owner is going to put something in here. I'm not sure what, but he wanted something pretty heavy duty. So stay tuned for the next video that's going to show you how I make my drawer boxes. And now we pad sand.